Good morning, everyone. Welcome to In Tune with Joon, the podcast for millennials and Zoomers by millennials and Zoomers. I'm your boy Joon, as you know. Today we have a very interesting topic. What is love? And no, baby, don't hurt me. But Daria actually introduced this idea, and he said the title's kind of funny, and I was like, no, I think it's gonna work, and so that's what we're sticking with today. And we're gonna try to obviously most of these, if not all, are free form. So we're gonna try to get everyone's take on how they define love, on whether we think different kinds of love are more similar than different. We're going to try to do a deep dive into it. And usually with these lengthy topics, we get a lot of ideas out, but there usually ends up being a part two. We'll see if this one needs a part two as well. Without further ado, let me introduce my lovely panel, all reoccurring faces, and I love all of them. So let's start with Denny. How you doing, buddy?
Hey guys, doing pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Always a pleasure to have you on. And we'll just go from left to right. Emma, what's up?
Much love you too, Kia.
Love you guys. Evan, Joon, how you doing?
I'm in the CIA, but don't tell anybody.
I don't love that. All right, Dario, what's up, buddy?
Hey, good. Good, how are you?
Good. Thanks for bringing this topic to my attention. And finally, Zara, how you doing?
I am lovely.
Oh, the puns. I'm gonna.
Wait, Kia,
Yeah.
hold up.
Yeah.
You said bringing this topic to your attention, so like you have never thought about the concept of love before?
Bringing this topic to my attention for the podcast.
Dude, Robo
okay.
Kia has never,
Am I
his
Robo?
updates haven't allowed.
Oh, never mind.
Your algorithm hasn't
Yeah.
allowed for the update of
New software
sensors.
version, love, memory chip needed, hardware support,
These are
contact
the
manufacturer.
socks, these are the pants, these are the white beaters, and this is, what is this?
I cannot insert love. Okay, anyway. I like to start off by trying to define love, define whatever we're talking about. Does anyone want to suggest a definition, or do you guys want me to pull one from the internet and we branch off from there?
I would like to actually suggest something. What about we just go into it? We get into the mud. And at the end, when we're all about to call it quits, then we actually put a definition on love.
Okay, you want to spin the idea on its head? I like it. Sounds good. We can do that. So, all right, Mr. Mud, would you like to make like the piggies and jump in?
Sure. I was actually wondering it'd be a good idea maybe to start with dreams.
Oh wow. Okay, go for it.
But yeah, I'll tell you why I brought this up. Maybe that'll be a better.
Sure.
I brought this topic up because for some reason, I've been having dreams about two exes.
Okay.
Well, one wasn't really an ex, but one was like a great love, and the other is an ex.
Okay.
And they've been reoccurring for like a month, but like sporadically.
Okay.
And the first time it happens, you don't really think anything of it, but then when you start seeing a pattern, you're like, okay, there's something going on. So I've just been thinking about. It might also be intensified with quarantine. So I'm like thinking about, being reflective, thinking about past relationships, and I think it's interesting. I always have like one of them. If I always think about relationships, she pops up in my dreams. That's the great love, and then the other one is like the last relationship I've had. And so I think we could start somewhere where like, what do dreams, how do they reflect our, because it's not really about like the person, it's about like you in the dream, but like it's like veiled behind all this stuff. So I wanted to ask you guys, has that been happening to you under quarantine with past loves or, relationships, or what do you think those dreams mean for you guys?
I haven't had dreams about any loves, but I've had some very lustful dreams during quarantine.
Yes, please, ladies.
I was about to ask, are we talking about wet dreams as well? But go ahead.
Because like I keep thinking of a specific person and having lustful dreams about them, not like dreams of love or anything. And this isn't a person that I have. Yeah, I guess. Someone that I would consider a romantic attraction.
Have you dated this person?
Yeah, I guess. No.
Ooh. Unrequited lust.
I mean, I haven't dated them, but I've, had them in a lustful context.
Zara, I thought you were a Christian woman.
I love the euphemism.
Wait, do you know who this is?
Okay, we don't have to put that out there.
But okay. I'm not gonna say who it is.
Yeah,
that's okay. I had an intuition.
That question cuts too deep, Evans.
No, yeah, we don't have to get personal.
Yeah.
I'm on a mind wavelength,
But I have been thinking, like, outside of dreams, thinking about like past relationships more than I usually do. So maybe it's like a yearning for connection in both senses, lustful and love connections. I don't know.
Sure.
So
I was actually quarantined, well, until very recently. I was quarantining with my boyfriend and he just left. But while he was here, I would have like dreams about us doing really fucking mundane things, like going to the grocery store. Like, I don't know, it was like the opposite of a lustful dream, but it was like, I think it's because we were like doing like the everyday stuff all the time. And I just wanted to point out, I think, like, I mean, this is also different and sort of like, but speaking of sort of like, I don't know, I think in a way it was like love during quarantine became sort of just like being together and like doing life together in like the most sort of like basic way. Which, I mean, for better or for worse, but I guess in a way I'm trying to say, I think my dreams did reflect the way that like our love was acting during quarantine, if that makes sense.
Interesting. Yeah. Did anyone else quarantine with someone that they're with? Like that, I'm thinking of Denny actually specifically, and the reason I asked Denny is I'm not quarantining with the person I'm with. Are you? Well, I guess we could double check. Are you with someone, and are you quarantining with them if you are?
I'm not quarantining with anyone, but yes, I am with someone.
Okay, so you're with someone and you're not quarantining with them. Got it.
Yep.
And yeah, go for it.
So I don't really have dreams, per se. More like daydreaming. You just phase out during the day and you think of like either like simple stuff like going to the grocery stores or even like just taking a walk around the city with that person. Without dreaming.
Got you. Yeah, so for me, I'm not much of a dreamer anymore. Ever since I went to college, I haven't been much of a dreamer. And I feel like it's because I was like my whole sleep completely changed when I entered college. I'll be brief about this because it's not really the topic. Basically, I had a roommate. He had a loud fan. I was a very light sleeper. I was forced to become a heavy sleeper, and I basically stopped dreaming regularly. When I had a very active imagination and I used to dream all the time, I kind of stopped dreaming. So I am I'm not quarantining with the person who I'm with, Monica, but I do quote unquote daydream, I guess. It's not exactly a daydream, but I guess I wish for the time that we can do mundane activities. So just to follow on Emma and Danny's footsteps, which is interesting because we're all with someone and we just want to do like basic shit with them again. And it makes sense, right? Like you're not with them, you can't see them right now, so you just, even the bare minimum of just being with them and doing anything is good enough. And I think that's a type of love. Oh, Emma is bugging out. She's back. All right, we're good. So yeah, that's it for me. Evan, we haven't heard from you. You dreaming about stuff, or not really?
I have weird dreams sometimes, but I can't remember one off the top of my head. But they're usually like arguing with people. I had one where like the head of my program was like arguing with me about a class. Yeah, I don't know. I have been having weird dreams in quarantine, and people have been saying that because of the lack of stimulation from being indoors, like your brain becomes more active, so you have weirder dreams.
Interesting.
Yeah, you can see that.
Did you want to take us anywhere with this, Daria, or are you just curious?
I was just curious. Well, I mean, I kind of wanted to take us somewhere. I don't know. Like, has any discoveries about love through your dreams are usually a way you can you make like discoveries for yourself, like kind of like not directly, right? So I was wondering if, and especially in relation to love, so I was wondering if anybody had any insights.
Oh, actually, you know what? I can answer that question a little bit. So, I like relationships have ups and downs, and recently it was more of a down. And when I would envision like, okay, can we get to a point where this is just happening? That would help calm me down, and that would help Monica as well. So, I think idealizing the future can help solve issues in the present. Or at least envisioning a realistic future, not even idealizing. Just like looking forward to the future can help shed some light on an issue that you're having in the present.
Yeah.
I feel like, so I've had a friend who's been going through a really tough time in her relationship, but it's also coinciding with just general long distance relationships.
Yeah.
And it's like, I guess it goes along what you were saying, Kia, where it's like, since they can't really envisage a time to be together next because they're working in different countries, it's kind of tough. It's a definite strain.
So it's like the opposite of what I was saying almost.
Well,
that's like the future is stressing them out, right?
Yeah, but I'm saying if you can't like envisage that, like it's tough, because at least like when you're in quarantine, you can be like, oh, we'll go over to each other's houses or whatever in like a couple months, hopefully. But it's tougher when it's across borders.
I don't want to make this about relationships, but one thing I said on a relationship podcast episode was that the point of a long distance relationship is to get out of one. It's like envisioning yourself transitioning to, I don't know, I don't want to say regular, but like short distance relationship. I don't know. So if they can't envision that, I feel like that's not a good sign for their relationship. Not to be melodramatic, but just my opinion.
Actually, I have a question for you, Daria. About, do you think you have a reason? Do you think there's a why you had those dreams?
That's a good question. I woke up this morning and I Googled it because I was like, I mean, I kind of had a feeling because I've read stuff about dreams before, like the run of the mill, like, Freud, you're Jung. So I had like, I'm like, oh, they mean something. Like I can't just brush them off. And I looked it up and stuff, and I got reminded like, oh yeah, it is like, so apparently the dreams are supposed to be these sort of dreams are supposed to be reflective of not so much of the relationship a lot of the times, but like you and like the things that you hold on to or held on to during the relationship and that you liked or didn't like, and the qualities that you'd like to see in yourself or the qualities that you don't like to see in yourself and that you repress. Like all this sort of stuff it gets incarnated in this person in your dream because they meant so much to you. It's like a direct way. Your unconscious is such a bitch that it like goes straight into into the dagger, right? It's like, oh, you love this person or whatever, or you had like, intimate connection. This will really get you to like pay attention in the dream. And I think like men and like some theories are like men's qualities and things like that are usually represented in like a woman, like our ideals. And that we could argue about that. It's like very.
Can you repeat that?
Like the theory, European theory, was what I was getting at, is that men's ideals, like qualities that we like to see in ourselves and things that we don't like about ourselves, but that we repress, they usually get represented by a woman.
Okay.
Like so, and Jung calls it like the anima, and then for women it would be the animus. So they'd have like the same thing, but like for men, right? The gender, like this is a very like, and this also goes into like it's basically who are you sexually attracted to, essentially.
Got it.
But also sometimes not, like sometimes like it's I guess what I'm trying to say, it's not a sexual thing as well, because there could be exceptions. Sometimes it comes up as a man, or it's interesting, or like a mix of the both. But at least for me, it usually manifests as a woman. So I think to answer your question, Danny, I think that my theory is through my past loves or people that that were. Because one of them was like someone I loved, and the other one is someone that said she loved me, but then I hadn't ever said it to her. Like I was still unprepared to say it to her. And I think it's interesting that I had dreams about, like last night, I had one dream about the one who the love was unrequited on her part. Like I didn't love her back, or I didn't say it back. And then the other half of the night, like I woke up and I went back to sleep. And then the other one that I loved, but I felt like I was the unrequited one. I had a dream about her. It's like side by side. And
you're like, what does it mean?
I woke up and I was like, what are the odds? We're having a podcast this morning. I was like, what does it mean? Yeah,
well, you said, I mean, if I may share, you said you were feeling romantic when you wanted to do this subject.
Right. It's so strange. I've already been having dreams about them, but different nights at different times of the month, like very like spread out. And then last night it was side by side, which was really interesting. And so when I woke up, I was like, why those two? And I have this interesting, the first part, is like, oh, because I loved one and I didn't think she loved me back. And the other one thought she loved me and I didn't love her back. So that's already a very interesting duality, right? So yeah, the dreams. So I'm looking into it. I haven't really found any answer. I just had the dreams. I want to look into it and be like, what qualities of mine? Because the interesting thing is they're not really acting like themselves. Like they kind of are, but they're not. So that means that like it's not. The dream's not about them. It's because they're like a kind of strange, like manifestation of themselves. Like something's off in the dream. It could be like it's not exactly them, but it's like them. You know what I mean?
Do you think it's a lesson in empathy, showing you how it feels, and then how you kind of react to it as the portrayer of like not like showing love back?
That is possible. I didn't think about that. That could be possible. I like to associate like what you're saying with like wounds. Like maybe I was so hurt by these two relationships, but in different ways, that I've sealed off parts of me, that came out of these loves, right? That's so like that could be interesting. Yeah. That might go back to an empathy thing. It's possible. Like maybe it chinked away at my empathy a little bit. Like it makes you just a more jaded person, right? When you come out of these, and then maybe my mind is telling me like, no, don't be afraid to like invest or that's a possibility. I also would like to know what quality, like when we love. So now to make it more general, but like when we're in love or we fall in love, right? We tell ourselves we're falling in love or say I love this person. I really wonder like what, and maybe those of you that are in relationships, please, long committed relationships. I don't know. I think Emma, you've been with your boyfriend a while, right?
Yeah, like a little over a year and a half.
Oh, yeah, that's great. And Danny, you're in a relationship?
It's 6.5 years. About
Phew.
6.5 years.
Oh shit. Okay, so yeah, that's great. We got 1.5. We got Kia. What are you? 3 years now?
Yeah, we have literally like 1.5 times 2, 3 times 2.
Yeah, we have some
Just
veterans here. So maybe you veterans can clarify a lot for us of what is love, because I wonder what kind of
Or maybe if we're
qualities-
in broken relationships, we can't qualify or clarify.
What's your guys' secret?
It's a very like Cosmo thing to ask. Like 20 secrets.
What's the secret?
I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, the problem is, like, I want to be able to say, like, oh, yeah, love is about just having this, like, trust and this sort of, like, this belief, this mutual sense that, like, you're going to show up for one another and just, like, knowing that to be true, like, in the most, like, robust sense of what that means, just, like, this total, like, there for one another. But simultaneously, like, for this boyfriend, I fell in love with someone else who was not there for me, who did not show up, who was, like, and so, I mean, I feel like it's really hard to, I don't know. I mean, love was born out of, like, I don't know what. So I have no answers. I don't know.
Wait, I have a question for Emma, and then all of us as well, of course, like everybody, especially you guys in a relationship. So Emma, do you think like what kind of qualities? Because you imagine you live with this person quite a bit, and he dreams about doing mundane things, which is really interesting. That's like fascinating. Do you like what kind of qualities, like off the top of your head, do you see in them, or that you like and that you don't like? That like I mean, maybe that's too personal a question. I can't tell.
I mean,
I don't know how to talk about this without getting personal. Like, what is love? We have to get personal.
He's deeply kind. He's like the kindest person I've ever met, and like just like profoundly empathetic and like very. I don't know. I think that's just what it is. I think sometimes we underestimate kindness. I know it sounds like really basic. I don't know, but like I feel like in the past, at least in other relationships, I feel like I've prioritized like I don't know, sort of like, like intelligence or like intrigue or like the classic like want what you can't have or whatever, and it's always kind of been like a shit show.
So games.
It's like someone, the games, but it's like there are no games and there's no like. If anything, if there are games, it's like on my bullshitty part. Like he does not do games, and I lure myself up, and he's like a very good counterpoint to me. I guess it's like he's much sort of more. We're both neurotic, but he's like a lot more chill, I think, in a way. So I don't know. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is just like he's also really smart, but it's like that I feel like I can also tell him anything, and he's not gonna just like I don't know, just always gonna sort of be unwavering. Yes, I don't know. Stability, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, very interesting. So you have qualities that, like, I see. I feel like we get with people because we see qualities in them that we want to see in ourselves, right?
I think that's definitely a part of it. I wish that I had the level of patience that he had.
But that's
quite
not
honest.
that's not necessarily how everyone feels. Like,
No, of course
I
not.
don't know.
But
I feel
no,
like some people have told me that I'm too nice, and then my reaction is like, well, I can show you not nice if you really want that, but probably not.
Scary.
I mean, it could be like
So ominous sounding.
like I don't know if that's like an excuse for something else that they just don't want to bring up or whatever, but like people are very, I don't know. Like
Zara's got her guard
I
up.
would, well,
You got your
I would,
guard up, Zara.
I
Yeah,
would
you're
agree
close.
with, I would agree with like Emma with like what I would look for. But yeah, some people you can't read.
I mean,
Sure.
you guys are all describing qualities of a dog. You know, very patient, very kind, loving. So really, I think we should all be getting dogs. No, I'm kidding. But well, I wanted to comment on what Emma said about games. So when I first texted Monica over Tinder, no less, it was like immediate responses, which was the first time anybody had immediately gone back and forth, specifically on Tinder. I'm not saying that didn't happen over text, but usually people would purposefully, myself included, wait to respond back on Tinder as an illusion of not seeming thirsty, right? So with her, no, she just responded whenever she wanted to. And so I was like, okay, well, I can respond whenever I want to now. Like I want to, right? Like if it was up to me, I would be very prompt with everything and everyone. But I know that for some reason, it's just not socially accepted. You just come off as too needy or too thirsty. So then you artificially, like, I'll wait a day or half an hour or hours or whatever it may be. And that was the first sign that this was going to be somebody who was not just conforming to, you know, what everyone else did for the sake of it. That's just one small thing I wanted to contribute. That the lack of games helps a lot, especially when you get older, I'm sure.
We got Evan, Danny.
Dario's the presenter now.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm on Twitter.
Yeah.
Whoever heard about you guys?
I don't know. I don't have anything to add right now.
No, it's fine. You don't have to. It's all good. But if you want
I
to,
wish I had a dog.
yeah, I mean, I would recommend it. Dogs are good boys. All dogs are good boys. Good boys, gender neutral. Don't fight me. Anyway, so I think one thing that we can talk about is non-romantic love, right? We've been talking about romantic love. Do you guys want to transition to love that doesn't have to be romantic, or sorry, you want to hop
I
in?
have kind of like a transitionary one because I have never been in love with anyone that I haven't been friends with first. And I've tried the whole dating scene and like jumping into like a relationship like with the expectation that it's going to be not a friendship. And it's always gone horribly and I hate it. And I just like, I need to be friends with people like before any romantic feelings pop up.
So love comes from friendship.
Yeah, like I feel deep love for all of my friends that I would like do anything for them. And then like obviously when you go into a romantic relationship it's a similar thing, but yeah,
It's
I
very
don't know.
healthy.
I
No,
don't know
I'm
what
sorry. I'm serious. No, I'm serious. Like to start as a friendship, to see it as that, because I'm starting to get on Zara's page about that.
So,
and I hate the like
yeah, go
trope
ahead.
of like, oh, you know, someone's put me in the friend zone. I'm like, that's like the first step. That's like that's a good sign.
Yeah, no, could be. It's an opportunity rather than a loss.
I agree with Zara. I mean, I think less. I guess I've never actually started out as like full friends with anyone that I've loved, but I think like there has to be a very initial sense of just like lots of conversation. It's like lots of sort of, I don't know, it has to be very like firm foundation of like, I can talk to you, we can sort of like be on the same page without any sort of like romantic stuff before like, anything else can happen. But I mean, I have gone into it assuming like it's going to transform into something. But like even my current boyfriend, when we first started dating, we didn't even kiss on the first date. Like it was very kind of like, I don't know, it was like slow, I guess.
Yeah, the big love of my life. We started out as friends, actually. Like, I guess there was an attraction there, but we were friends for like 2 years in high school. Like, and then after high school, for like 4 or 5 years after, it would be on and off. But we realized, but we're such great friends, we would always stay friends. We were like best friends almost. We would still stay friends, even if like we had a fling during the summer or whatever, and come, So it's very interesting that like, it starts as a friendship and then it blossoms into like, one day it's like friendship is not enough for both of us. You need to express something more. But then I've also thought about like I've fallen for people or like really liked people, really, really liked them because immediately in the night or in the week that you meet them, you're like this person is like hanging out with them. You're like I can tell I'm going to be great friends with this person. And then that kind of snowballs really quickly into, oh, now I want to sleep with them.
Yeah, just like when I first reconnected with you, Daria, I was like, I'm going to be really great friends with you. And then I just wanted to see your bare ass all over my cock. No, but what I wanted to say, based off of a tweet that I saw out of context like a couple of days ago, was that if you really love someone, you should just be friends with them. There was, and I don't know if that said something more about that person not being able to have.
That's incel. That's incel.
No. I don't think it's incel energy. Well, first of all, it wasn't tweeted by a dude, but I guess that's irrelevant. The point I think that tweet was trying to make is that friends. I could be extrapolating all of this based off of nothing, but for me, I feel like you can have friends you can depend on. You can have great friends, people who are by your side, and the bar is never going to be as high for them as someone who you're in a relationship with. Where I'm going with this is you can definitely get your feelings hurt by stuff going wrong in your friendships. But I feel like you're even more vulnerable in a relationship, and that leaves more room for heartbreak. That leaves more room for disappointment, higher expectations in a relationship than from your friends, obviously. So I'm not discounting friendships by any means, but I think that's what that tweet was trying to get at. And I'm not sure if I agree with the message. What do you guys think?
Oh, this is kind of like, I'm gonna use a name, but like whatever. I don't know that he watches this. Also, hasn't talked to me in a while, so who knows if he's still living. But Fergus Place once told me. Yeah, I'm calling him out.
Damn.
No, I mean,
Fergus, where are you?
Yeah, like
Where are you?
No, I mean it's actually
man.
a sweet story, but I don't even feel bad saying it because he probably wouldn't want me to share this. But whatever. Where is he? Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
he after we broke up, he once told me he was kind of drunk, but he was like, "I'm so happy we broke up because now we can be friends forever." And I was like, "Yeah," like.
Well, that's so cute.
Was, but I think it was also kind of really genuine. Like, I mean, to Kia's point, I think there is something like really lovely about just having like a strong affection for someone that's sort of not within these sorts of like confines. I don't know. Also, I think our relationship is sort of interesting because it was a relationship, and now it's like a really close friend. Well, whatever. Now it's complicated, but it's like a really close friendship, and it's sort of like, I think that was like sort of a really nice bond that formed, and like, I don't know, and I sort of feel. That's sort of, but I was going to say, I feel like something that we put too much pressure on though is like this distinction between like romantic and platonic, not in like kind of of course I think there's a distinction there, but it's sort of like, I think there are like differing levels and like differing, I don't think it's just like one and the other. I think it's more of like a spectrum of like how you relate to people. Yeah. I think people are so keen to like classify things, which is sort of, a bummer just because I think there are so many different forms of love that just like outside of the boundaries that we like place them in. Anyway,
I guess the reason I did it at the beginning of the stream, or maybe even before the stream, is I want to make it like something people can digest. But I do like the idea of just talking free form and treating it as a spectrum. So yeah, we don't have to set limitations or label it by any means. Go ahead, Zara.
I mean, that has actually, going on what Emma just said, that has actually been quite a big problem for me sometimes because I have a friend who I've known since kindergarten, and whenever I talk to her, like, I feel the best that I've ever felt in my life. Like, sometimes when I think about her, I almost like lose my breath because I'm just like, ugh, what an incredible person. I love her so much. But we've been friends since kindergarten, and like sometimes I almost like rethink it, and I'm like, is this romantic love? Because she is such an important part of my life, and she like gives me emotions that I can't even place because I've never felt them before. But I don't know, like, I don't know if there's a sexual attraction, but like there's and also sometimes I get confused with like sexual attraction and romantic attraction. Cause like, it's such a weird line, and I want her to be in my life for like forever, but like how? I don't know. It's very intense.
What about friend versus best friend?
I don't have any, like, I feel like there's a huge difference between those for me. Like, I don't know. And then, yeah, strange.
You know, I've always had a hard time defining that. Like, when people ask me who my best friend is, I'm like, what do you mean? like it's a really tough question for me to answer. And that could be because I have like a strong love for all my friends, or I don't know how to explain it exactly, but maybe I'll let Daria go on and I'll try to figure out what I was trying to get to.
No, what was so I gotta remember what I was gonna. Zara, no,
Okay.
Zara brought it really interesting. Sorry. And then I started thinking about what you were saying.
Zara was talking about how she like felt intensely about
remember
this one friend.
Yeah.
And,
I gotta remember what I was.
All right. Well, I guess I'll blabber on then. What I wanted to get at is I feel like for some people that feeling that Zara's feeling might make the difference between a best friend and a friend, but I'm like not confident in saying that because I feel like there are so many examples I can think of like friends I consider like friends, but I don't even know. I'm just very, obviously you can tell I'm very confused by the matter. Like it's a really tough distinction for me. And I think that is a testament to what Emma was saying about love being a spectrum. In that it's not easy to label these things. Even in relationships, people are hesitant to label themselves as they're going along their path. So I think it's okay to be confused by love. That's what I wanted to get at. If nobody has something they immediately want to say / respond to, we can take a quick break. Daria, go
I
for
do.
it.
Maybe I'll leave you guys with it. I remember now. I wanted to what Zara triggered.
Yeah.
I was like, hearing about Zara's like, is this romantic? Is this like, is this sexual love? Is this romantic? What is this? I feel like, is it, maybe this could be after the break part of our thing. Like, is love, no matter where it comes from or how it evolves, whether it's platonic or not, whatever you categorize love as for a person or for something too, do you think that it's a human need? It's an absolutely human need to, once you surpass a certain level of, you want to, inherently, you want to express it physically. Like it's some kind of like human like ideal to be able to share your body, to like physically merge with a person, an idea, or even a thing. That's why maybe sex is so like, people always say like, oh, the union of two souls, but like there might be like within that, like, within that new age bullshit, maybe there is actually some kind of like deep, grain of truth where you're like, I love like whatever love is, but like the feelings I get for this one thing, for some weird reason, my biology wants to like fuse with it and become one with it. Like, whether it's
the true love is fusing with Christ.
What? Wait, what? I didn't hear it.
Oh.
True love is fusing with Christ.
Oh, true.
Well,
that's an
material world is corrupt, sinful flesh.
My answer was gonna kind of touch on sort of
but
Eastern
even religion,
spirituality
Evan's
and
right.
like detachment from the
religion.
world and things. That's what I wanted to touch on after the break. I think I want to leave a spicy cliffhanger to come back to.
Sure.
And we can think about what you said and we can
Can we
freshen
have
up.
a little? I want to make some tea, so can we have like a
Take your
10
time. Take your time. Yeah.
Okay.
Take your time. All right, we'll be on a break and we'll be back shortly. Stay tuned. Okie dokie, we're back and we're down a member. Thanks, Denny, for being on. He had to head out for dinner.
no.
Let's get right back into it. Daria, do you want to repose ta question? Can you re-ask your question?
For all our non-French viewers, yes, yeah. I forgot. What was my question? I'm sorry. My mind's off. I know.
This man wants to make tea. Anyway, you said his love. You basically said his love like necessary.
Oh yes.
Like you're saying.
No, I got
love?
it. I remember.
Yeah.
No, I remember.
Go ahead.
I remember now. I think my question was, is there an inherent human need to express love physically? Because whenever we are in love with either a person, an idea, or even an object, it's not uncommon to hear expressions or even stories of people wanting to, give their body or share their body with or become one with that love. So Evan brought up the fantastic example of the church. Like the church wants you to give body and soul to Christ, right? So there's this fusion. If you love, you have to fuse with, and of course, romantic love is always linked, I think, to kind of touch upon what Zara was saying, at least in the public consciousness, it's always linked with, sex. Like, if you romantically love someone, the natural thing to do is to have sex with that person,
So are you talking
that's
just
weird.
about romantic love, or are you saying something else?
No, I'm trying to group this. I'm trying to make an umbrella of like how we physically, how love is like, we have an idea of it as we have to also give our body, saying like in religion, in our personal intimate relationships, and also for ideas like what is war, but you're not, you're upholding the idea of something. So I give my body, I love this idea so much, I give my body for it.
About Plato,
could be argued. Not everybody. It's like there are cases, right? Like take
You read
for
the
example,
Symposium?
of Plato, right?
Yeah.
Long
Have you
time
read
ago. Yeah, long time ago, I think. Maybe. But I'm familiar with the idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because like the whole idea is that you should supersede bodily love and carnal love, and that the main goal is to like reach a higher plane of like souls melding without physicality. Which is not necessarily something I agree with. I just was trying to like counterpoint.
No, that's fantastic. I mean, no, thank you, because
being a pedophile.
What about being a pedophile?
Well, no, Socrates loved boys, but in a platonic way. Just admired like a beautiful.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not trying to say like I'm not trying to
Yeah.
hold up Socrates as like a paradigm of this. I'm just talking about like the ideas put forth in the Symposium. I think like I don't agree with, but is an interesting thing to think about.
for sure.
Is that possible to like?
Well, Eastern philosophy, I think, Kia, you're going to bring that up too.
Yeah.
I love what Emmett said, because Eastern philosophy is always talking about that. Like you can, like, carnal love, that's like the first step. That's like for you to get kind of initiated. It's like the easiest way for you to get initiated with love. But then you can, the transcendence to that. There's like a whole other plane of love that is out there that, you need to work on yourself to access. It's very interesting, Emma, what you're...
Yeah. This is sort of a different thing, but I got sort of like really interested in back to like, I got really interested in sort of like self-asceticism, like sort of like putting yourself to be closer to God, especially sort of in like the Christian tradition. was reading like a lot of Flannery O'Connor, but basically like I don't know, originally I thought that it was this idea of like if you hurt your body, you're like trying to make your body lesser to make your connection to like the ethereal plane stronger. Then I was thinking that like that connection is only possible because of your physical body. So it's like your physical body is what enables that stronger connection to God, like via this sort of like theory of asceticism. And the more I was thinking about that, the more I was kind of like, I don't know if there exists this kind, like I don't know if you can, I mean, as much as there's this idea of like there's an ideal form of like or this area that is like not connected to your body, like your body is always the conduit, I think, in some sense. I don't know, sorry, this is getting like kind of left field, but I guess I was sort of thinking I used to be more of like the idea that maybe there is like this perfect love, and now I'm less.
Wait, so love, I kind of like what you're saying about the body being a conduit of love. Could you elaborate on that? Because is that kind of like the first sorry, I don't know other way to say this, but is it like the first step? Like, are you saying like first we experience it through the body, but we have to realize that maybe it's like the body is just a signal to say it's something more? Is that kind of what conduit means, or it has a different function?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was thinking conduit. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking of it kind of. You know, I was using conduit more like in thinking about sort of like heavenly, like sort of like communion with God, like sort of like again specifically sort of like self-flagellation and stuff to feel closer to God. But I agree. I mean, what I was actually trying to say is more that I think that like the body is a conduit, like in the sense that you cannot attain, like you need the body, like the body is inextricable from the mind and inextricable from this kind of love. And like I think, I mean, like here's a weird example, but like thinking of sort of just like platonic love, something I've really missed during quarantine is just touching people, like touching my friends, just because it's like I really like holding hands, I really like hugging, and like there's something that I feel like really lacks when I can't do that. And again, it's like that's like platonic love in a sense, right? But it's like something about sort of like physicality that I think is very linked to the mind and to the way that we feel about one another and the way that we like connect to one another. I don't know, this is me just like talking out of my ass, but
well, I think there's been a lot of talk about different philosophies, and I'd like to bring up the philosophy of John Mayer, that love is a verb, and that like you need to like constantly, show up and show it. Like it's not just a feeling, you have to like show it. And I think like physicality is another way of showing it,
right.
And like consistently showing it.
Right.
I wanted to get to the topic of love languages at one point, and that leads me to say that I think it depends on the person, to answer your question, Daria. So for someone like me, I'm leaning more towards what Zara is saying, even though I like what I'm hearing from, I was going to bring up Eastern philosophy. You guys brought up Plato. I think those are fascinating, but I guess in practice for me, physicality is like a necessary ingredient. If I don't want to get too sciencey about it, but obviously you have endorphins released from cuddling, from hugging, from kissing, from sex, right? So you develop deeper bonds on a hormonal level just from a physical connection with someone. So I don't think that necessarily proves it's necessary. But I think it has evidence to show that it's encouraged on a biochemical level. So that could have implications for, how we end up experiencing love in the real world.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, to your point, it's kind of funny because a good friend of mine is in a long-distance relationship. He has been for almost 6 years. And I was in a long-distance relationship before quarantine with my boyfriend. He was still in New York. And I was talking to her at one point, and I was like, oh, it's so hard. Like, I hate long-distance, and part of it is, like, physicality, like, just, like, even just touching. And she was like, oh, I don't have that. And I was like, what do you
crazy,
mean?
Right?
She was like, I'm totally fine with not touching.
That's insane.
I was, yeah. She's an Aries, but
so Monica and Aries.
Is she enlightened?
No, Monica says the same stuff. She says it's not necessary for me. For me, it's like torture to be apart.
I'm a Cancer, so I need touch.
Oh my god.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about, horoscopes. But anyway.
Mostly kidding. But to your point, yeah, I think it's definitely different strokes for different folks. But I think physicality can be very important.
I don't think I've ever heard that expression. I'm gonna yoink that. I'm gonna use that. But anyway.
Never heard different strokes for different folks?
No,
Really?
I haven't.
I haven't heard that. Wait, what?
I'm a yoink it.
My
It's
mom
fine.
says it a lot.
Your mom would
Yokes
say it a lot.
what? I don't even understand it.
Different strokes for different folks.
Oh, for different folks. Okay, different
Yeah.
strokes for different folks.
That's such a succinct way of saying like people are different. I like it. I like it. Anyway, so I think we can talk about love languages a little bit. So Monica texted me something that she wanted me to share on the podcast. I'm going to share a little bit of what she texted me because she texted me a lot. But I think it's an interesting place to start because maybe this isn't the case for you guys. So on the topic of love languages, let me find what she said. Okay. So what makes me feel like I'm beginning to love someone? So like when I start talking and dating someone and like that moment, and that moment where I'm like, wow, I love this person. I start thinking about them more often than myself or others. Thinking about a past date, how much I liked hanging out with them, things I want to do with them later, looking at something and think that's something they'd like. Let's see what else. I don't hesitate to splurge on them. So one of her love languages is gift giving. And I'm trying to find the part where she says that. But you guys feel free to fill in the gaps while I try to find this. And maybe you can talk about your love language if you want, or your partner's love language, or a love language that someone you know has and you thought it was interesting.
Someone remind me what they all are. It's like gifts, one is touch. I don't know the others.
I have them up right now.
Zara,
so
let's go.
Quality time. There's quality time, acts of service, words of affirmation, physical touch, and receiving gifts. And that's actually the order in which they are for me.
What's a service? What's that one?
When you do something like, say you like make the bed, or like, you know, you clean up the dishes, or like you drive someone to somewhere, like, yeah.
So what's the? Can you read them one more time? Sorry.
Yeah.
I can
there's
type them
quality
as well.
time.
Okay.
Yeah, there's quality time, acts of service, words of affirmation, physical touch, and receiving gifts. Personally,
Okay.
Mine is like my top one is quality time.
Yeah, that's funny. Me too. I really like service as well. I'm really those two. Gifts, I don't really care. I'm like whatever, or all the other ones. But quality time and acts of service, like I definitely would love to like I always like, make the bed, or like I make sure, I feel like that's like action. Action is so, for me it's like everything. Like you could say words of affirmation. I feel like it's so hollow. Like I love you, I love you, I love you, but go take out the trash. It's like, what? Yeah. Come on. Really? What? Or like, I love you, I love you, I love you, but I don't want to come. I don't want to come to your like special event.
Have you read?
What?
Hey, Daria, have you read The Argonauts by Maggie Nelson?
No, I don't know that. What is that?
Okay, so it's this like.
Can you type it in the chat, please?
Yes, it's this work. It's called auto theory or auto fiction. It's kind of like it's autobiographical, but it also has like theory sort of interspersed in it. But one of the
very
things,
Francais. No.
maybe. But like one of the things that she talks about, and like the reason that it's called The Argonauts, is because she says that "I love you," like saying those words for her is like in the Argo, or like in the story The Argonauts, they have to rebuild parts of the Argo all the time. So like it's kind of like there's constantly these scenes where it's like we have to keep rebuilding, but like the structure of the Argo is always the same, but they like keep rebuilding it. So she says that like saying "I love you" is like every time you say it, or like any sort of like this different life, and you're like building. It sounds weird, but like it's building on to this structure, and every time that you say it, it like makes the structure stronger. Does that make sense?
Every
not
time you
saying
say
that-
genuinely, or just anytime anybody says
I mean,
it?
she means it like genuinely, but she sort of means that like, especially in different contexts and it's in different like stages of life, it's kind of like you guys. Well, so she's talking like her partner transitions, and so she talks about sort of like the way that you like continue to say I love you, but it takes on like new and different meanings, but it's still building on the same like structure of your relationship, especially when one person sort of like changes, or you both start changing. Well, she gets pregnant, so she talks about like the bodily changes that she undergoes and the bodily changes that her partner undergoes, and then like how they sort of like change but continue to like build on their argo together. Does that make sense?
Whoa, yeah, that's pretty deep. I'm gonna.
It's really
That sounds heavy. Yeah, that sounds like a great read. I'm gonna check
really
that out.
good. But I think that's the only way in which like words of affirmation make sense to me is like you're right, not like the sort of like repetitive like blah blah blah, but sort of like as a way of like continuing to like give the words meaning. And even if it's not I love you, but like some phrase, like again, they don't actually say I love you either, they start saying like the argo to each other, and that's their way of saying like we're building together and we're like continuing to move forward together.
There's kind of like a spin-off that I can read from what Monica texted me on that topic. She says that I used to hear you tell me a lot about how special I was to you, and it was in detail, and I feel really loved when there's little things that people remember about me. So that some of that is relevant to what you were saying. For example, like
Right.
the special things you like about me, right? That's different from just saying, oh, I love you. It's like, oh, I love you for this. Oh, I love you for that. So it's like another layer that adds on to that, I think. What were you going to say, Dario?
No, I just wanted to I thought it was really interesting. My ex was quite like, you don't say like, or you don't give me enough words of affirmation. That was her love language. She really liked words of affirmation, but that wasn't mine. But I try to meet halfway. Not very well, but I try. Very successful.
Well, that's why she's an ex, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, no, that was, I mean, maybe, but she it is interesting. Like, I really try to make it come across like I want to say these things, like if it's like genuinely in the moment, like if it's like for me it's like a big, like, it's funny, like for one person it's a big deal to be like, oh, I love you, or even like, oh, you're such a wonderful person, like things like that. Like that's kind of like a big deal because it's a big statement. But then for the other person, the value of that is not so much like the meaning inside, like not the general scope of the meaning inside, none of that. It's more like, I just want to hear that you see me as, and that you see me as the kind of person that I want to like ideally be. So I think like for me, words of affirmation get so dangerous like that, that was like, I remember I personally thought in that relationship it was like that. Like I was like, you're, if I affirm you like that, I feel like I'm just like throwing, like, just throwing gasoline on the fire, Like, oh. So that's how I felt. And she's like, she was like, ouch. And I was like,
I said ouch in my head. God damn.
Yeah, no, that's a whole, whew. I'm gonna need some therapy for that one.
It kind of like, verges on kind of selfishness. And I think one interesting part of love is like your relationship with yourself versus your relationship with another person. And like how that affects, because sometimes I feel like some people like they love another person, but they don't love their self enough to kind of like hold that up, and it can put a lot of pressure on the other person.
Yes.
I'm not necessarily saying that's the case with
I think you hit the nail on the head from my analysis of what happened, my subjective experience of my own, probably. But yeah, no, that's great. That's totally.
So I wanted to touch on what Zara said at one point as well. I wanted to say, I think to love yourself first is like the first step in properly experiencing love with others. And that, I mean, you summarized a lot of what I wanted to say. So good job for that. But I thought to myself, can you love?
Nice word of affirmation, Kia.
Yeah, there we go. See, I'm on the nose. Anyway, so the idea of loving yourself first is really important, I think, in fully experiencing love. But I don't think you need to love yourself to love someone else. But like you were saying, it makes it hard on the other person. So again, I'm not singling out Daria here. I'm just talking about in general, obviously. I think a lot of people need to hear this. It's like you do need to learn to love yourself. Especially if you're struggling to find someone to love you, let's say, like if you want to be in a relationship, let's say, and you're not at that level with yourself where you love yourself yet, which I think is one of the most important types of love, right? Self-love. Then that should be the priority. And I've heard everyone say everything will come naturally after that. I'm not saying, it'll happen without any effort, but if you put the effort and time into yourself, it will reflect on everything else that has to do with love, I think. Evan, you unmuted for the first time in a while. What's up?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with the whole self-love thing, but I also feel like there's a danger, especially now, of going too far in the opposite direction with narcissism and too much like introspection or too much like obsession with the self, and that can also be a hindrance to real. I mean, maybe you can like have like superficial connections, but you can't have like a real, more intimate, either if it's romantic or like even friendship. I feel like it's like it won't be meaningful love, if you will.
Although counter to that, I feel like when you don't love yourself, you can be such a, like, I'm talking about personally, like I was such a fucking narcissist when I didn't like myself because I was thinking about all the reasons why I hated myself. So like, but now that I love myself,
it's
that
two
like
sides of
I
the same
think of other
coin.
people. Yeah.
Like I think they're the same. Like not like excessively not loving yourself or like being too much obsessed. Like it's both like an imbalance of like having a healthy kind of acceptance of yourself and then moving outward. So yeah, I agree.
Right.
I agree with Evan too. Well, I was gonna say just the one point is just that like I agree as well that like I think sometimes they're like, especially right now, like we're having like a very big self-love moment culturally, and I think like in a way that's so important because for so long it's like people were being sort of told not the opposite, but like basically weren't told to love themselves, like didn't feel like they could love themselves or like have permission to do that. But at the same time, I do feel like at times, like especially like I'll sort of see. This is also like from just like recently being in school again, but it's like you have sort of, I don't know, you have these moments of people who are so kind of like focused on their own, like if they don't like doing a group project with someone who just like is so kind of like mired in their own shit. It's kind of like, I get that it's really hard, but like sometimes you have to start thinking about like other people and like I don't know, sorry, this is kind of like a neither here nor there. I guess I was just saying I feel like culturally right now, it especially, at least to me, feels like we're kind of are veering and like this opposite. Well, it's almost like narcissism is becoming like more acceptable, I guess. It's just sort of like
social media.
Yeah, and it's becoming something to be kind of like lauded, and I just don't. Yeah, I don't love that. But
On top of that, I think you're seeing. Actually, I don't want to do a tangent into social media. I talked way too much about it, but just to reel myself back in, I guess. I think it is encouraged, and that has to do with obviously. I think you can look no further than, I don't want to make it political, but let's say media coverage of the president, right? Everything's all about him. You hear every single day, Trump this, Trump that. Okay. And that's reflected on how influencers talk about themselves, their brand, the stupid water bottle that they're selling, and the lotion that they want to advertise. And constantly posting about themselves, editing themselves from selfies. Like, I couldn't agree more. It's super encouraged, and to Evan's point, that is also damaging, and I think it makes it difficult to find a balance when there are all these signs of, oh, well, this person's successful and they're all about themselves, so why shouldn't I try to be like that? So I don't know. Go ahead.
I wanted to bring up, like, it's kind of unrelated, but just a little like food for thought. It's easier to control people when they only love themselves, because they have the only thing they're fighting for or living for is themselves, right? They
Is this some conspiracy shit?
Well, it's kind of like it's a conspiracy that's like diffused. It's not like one person or one organ. It's this like, it's like a consensus, like it's like a societal consensus that like, let's go in this direction, and that, I think that's like, that's the sad part, is like, we ourselves are creating the conspiracies now, like, and like social media, like nobody, like there are totally engineered influencers, but whether or not they catch on or not, you can't always predict that. So that way, it's not the conspiracy we think it is. But the fact that,
well, when you said engineered, I thought you were going to talk about how social media is designed to do this.
There is social engineering, right? No, there is social engineering as well. But I'm saying, like, it's unfortunate that like we're hurting we're our own downfall. We're like,
but like, are you talking about people? Like, I'm talking about the literal, like, the application Facebook, the application Instagram. Like, when you say social engineering,
I'm talking about the users.
I'm not talking about the users. I'm talking about the platform.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's why when you said engineering and like that there's a societal consensus, I don't think it's necessarily a consensus. I think we were given these tools, and the only way to use them effectively is to follow like algorithms and how you get popular on these platforms. And
but use them enough times, it becomes a habit, and then habit becomes narrative.
This is big brain, man. I'm gonna have to sit on that.
Cornelius is back in the room.
Cornelius. Let's reel it back into love. So, like I said, I get way too easily distracted when we're talking about social media. Loving yourself versus.
Well, I wanted to ask.
Yeah, go for it.
I wanted to ask, kind of shift the topic of love. I wanted to ask Evan and Emma, because they're twins. So I would really like to hear love between twins, because that's a hot topic that is rare. I feel like, when do you ever get twins to talk about, like,
okay, sure,
their twinship?
Sure.
So just but nothing specific, just whatever comes to your guys' mind.
It's I feel like it's kind of like having a sibling who's just always been there. And sort of like, I mean, I don't know any twins that aren't close. It kind of like feels like a package deal, Like, I
what about twin separated at birth?
Well, that's different. But like when you grow up with a twin, you just become friends, because they're always there, like it just happens.
That's so funny. So twins, I was gonna say like pretty much the exact same thing. Like it's just like your built-in person, and it's like there's never been a time when you haven't been together. And also like, maybe, I don't know if this was maybe this is most twins, but it's also just like, I don't know, growing up we did like everything together, it was just like everything. it was always just like, yep, like we have the same school, we go to the same stuff after school, we like go to the same house, it was like a constant kind of like being together, which I also think that just like makes this kind of like very intense but like low-key bond, because it's also like you don't have to work. I mean, I don't know if we have to work at our bond, Evan, but like, I mean, you kind of just always like, I don't know. It's just always have a person.
You guys ever like? I mean, maybe it's just too light. I don't know. But you ever guys have a moment where you're like, "I love you," like, or is it just always,
just
always obvious?
It's
like always undercurrent tapestry of just like, I know this person. Like you have no desire whatsoever. It's not like a partner, right? Like for a partner or for a friend, even friendship, you have to like kind of reinforce it. You're like, right, with the languages of love. But like with a twin, I'm asking, with a twin, do you have to do you guys have felt that necessity really, or would you say that it's less for twins, for example?
I don't think I feel it as like a necessity. I think it's like the same as any other like love with someone. Like occasionally you feel like, oh yeah, like I'm glad I'm close to this person. Yeah, I don't know. I heard you guys talking about love language. I don't really get that. Like that just seems like something instinctual.
But
no, I was kidding.
I think love language is more in the context of a relationship. I'm sure it applies elsewhere, but I think love languages are more of
just for
romantic love. I'm not gatekeeping it, right? But I'm saying I think when I think of love languages, I'm thinking of like a romantic relationship.
Well, what's it also like to like you guys are, like, it's just kind of weird to think about, but like you guys were brought into existence with each other. So you guys were like in the void with each other, and then
we're just gonna have a whole podcast led by Daria. We're just gonna have a whole podcast led by Daria into the twin mind, and it's just gonna be a deep dive.
Twins are so fascinating to me. Like I could be a mad scientist. I like do experiments on them and shit.
Daria, have you seen Three Identical Strangers, the documentary?
No, I haven't.
You need to watch it. If you are obsessed with twins, you need to watch it.
Hell yeah, I'm gonna write that. I'm gonna look that up right now. Three Identical Twins.
There's something
Three Identical
to, like,
Strangers.
Strangers. Sorry, there it is. Yeah.
Sorry, Emma. Go ahead.
Here's something very quickly, Daria, to fuel your twin conspiracies. Not really, but like it was funny growing up. My mom told us that we would do this thing where we would like sit across from each other, and we would both have like pacifiers in our mouths, and we would take each other's pacifiers and just like sit there and do this sort of like mirror images.
No way, that's so cool. That's so cute and super cool. Wow. What does it mean? Did you guys attach any meaning to it?
I don't know. No? I think it was just we didn't even like. My point is, I don't know. I'm sure we differentiated at some point, but I'm not sure like when we became aware so much of like. I feel like you differentiate from your mother. Like I don't know when we differentiated from each other. Like obviously that happened, but there's this weird sense where like, especially when we were very little, apparently like Evan would whisper in my ear when we were very small, and I would like talk for both of us for a period of time.
That's so cool. You were the spokesperson of the twins.
Yes, yeah, I don't remember this either. This is like something my mom told me. But I guess I'm trying to say like I think there was a period of time where we were very like bound.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, obviously we differentiated at some point, but yeah, like, I think you're right about there's something like when you've always been with again like with your mother, right? Like if you like that's sort of a thing with kids. It's like you're so tied to a person, and then I think as twins you have the same thing, and then eventually you like separate kind of. But yeah.
All right. Well, I'm fascinated by this, but we are veering off course. Ish. I want to wrap things up because I feel like there's a lot more room to talk as I anticipated, so that there could be room for a part 2. Unless somebody really feels that they want to share something and that they want to hear us talk about. So is that the case?
No, I mean.
So, I want to leave room for a part 2 because this is I feel like we could talk about all different kinds of love. I feel like there are kinds of love we haven't talked about. Like, I don't know, we barely just touched on like twin/sibling love, but we haven't talked about parents at all. So there's definitely.
What about love for things?
Yeah, exactly. We haven't talked about. I love my car. I love my, whatever. Sure.
And animals, like human to animals.
Stuff that. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. So exactly. There's no way we were gonna fit all this into one podcast. And I think leaving room for a part 2 is always nice, especially when we don't have ideas for podcasts. So anyway, I think we will wrap things up here. Thank you, everyone, for being on. Is there anything you guys want to plug? Sometimes I forget to ask, but I'd be happy to plug anything you want.
Grey Gardens, the documentary.
Okay, I'll write that down. Grey Gardens. I'll write it in the notepad. Emma.
Oh, that's in the chat too, right?
Yeah, it is. Watch Grey Gardens. Got it. Anyone else? Zara, that one documentary, you want to plug that?
Yes. 3 Identical Strangers.
3 Identical Strangers. Boom. Anyone else? All right. I'll plug my own channel. Come back next week if you want to see a podcast, probably with some familiar faces that you see here, maybe some more. And I stream weekly, so hit that follow button if you haven't already. Other than that, you've been in tune with Joon. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time.